Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning, everybody. I was just deciding where in the stream playlist we should start. Hold on. There we go. All right. So Wednesday, we should get straight into it because we had ADP at 6:15. That's the one news event that happens earlier than I am willing to start streaming. U.S. ADP employment change negative 33 versus the expected 98K. Now remember that ADP has an uncertain follow-through into the non-farms payroll. Used to be, back in the day, that it was a pretty good indication of what non-farms was going to be, but especially since COVID, it's kind of been random, and we've had a lot of situations where ADP was really, really good and non-farms was bad, or even more likely where ADP was really, really bad and non-farms still ended up being really, really good. So just keep that in mind in terms of trying to figure out what's going to happen for the big event, because really when you look at the market, what market volatility is pricing in, you got some big volatility coming in here on Friday, and then it just continues going back up after that because there's other events like the whole tariffs thing. So yeah, we're coming into an interesting and an important time in the market. But negative 33. Like, that is, So, it wasn't quite enough to take us above 112, though. So let's come and take a look at the charts and see where we are, relatively speaking. Okay, so we took quite a dive yesterday, by the way. What was it? It was, I think it was, well, Powell's comments partly, but also partly the data that we got yesterday. There was some data that was, like PMIs, that was a little bit stronger than people were expecting. Got like a little fuzzy little piece of dust on my microphone. I can see it's bothering me. Okay. Now, interestingly enough, here with this ADP news, so yeah, we jumped up a bit. It wasn't enough to cancel out the downside that we've had here in the overnight session. But look at the change in the yield curve. The 2 and 10 is just shooting up there. So that kind of suggests to me that the market does believe this is an important data point that might not completely be reflected in the outrights. And this is really moving away from us while we're talking. It's coming back down. Okay, S&P 500. Well, we're mostly where we were yesterday, over there. So not as much damage there. Oil moving up just a tad. Gold holding its gains from yesterday. Silver a little bit more mixed. Copper kind of gave up some of those big gains, but I don't know. I was kind of getting one of those little, I don't know what to call this, head and shoulder pattern. It's like a certain kind of class of head and shoulder pattern where the shoulders are like really kind of flat. But and then the Japanese yen, well, jumping up there on that news. But looking pretty much like the Treasuries, and then Bitcoin. Bitcoin had a little bit of a move, a down move, and then back up. You can never have Bitcoin just move down, right? It always like immediately has to come back, or like the next day. All right. Good morning, A. Paul, Octavius, AO, Uzi. What's this little symbol next to AO's name? Oh, hey, that's interesting. It now YouTube now gives you guys rewards for being the top fans on the channel. And we got A. Paul, Octavius, and Delman. Wait, who is Delmanorf? Is that Uzi? It must be Uzi, because it's the picture is a Uzi. Did Uzi change his name? Or is that just what his name is? Oh, that's weird. No, except for that, it doesn't show it. Oh, maybe it's Uzi's old account. That's so weird. Very, very interesting. Okay, well, they've still got a little ways to go if they're going to completely erase the jump up that they had. I'm just going to sit on it. So interestingly enough, I've had the algorithm going, and it looks like it just never, yeah. Well, that one should have taken a trade yesterday. After the 8 o'clock. So don't know what to make of that. Yeah, under the crown selection thing, it showcases the actual tagged link name thing. Right. So like, let me bring it over here. If I click on it, it shows me the top fans. And number 5 is Delmanoff. And it's got a picture of Uzi. So I assume that is Uzi, but it must have been like his older account or something, because when I go back here, Uzi has spoken this morning and it doesn't have the thing next to him. So, but maybe it only shows the top 3. Maybe that's why. Maybe it's because it only does that for the top 3. I don't know. It's interesting. But then the other thing is it says XP. What's that? What's that about? What is the leaderboard? A place for fans to stand out in the community. The top 3 get special badges. It resets every stream. Oh, really? It resets every stream? So you can always try again? How do you get on the leaderboard? You need to collect experience points or XP. Here's how you get them. Send live chat messages. Send super chats and super stickers. Oh, look. Got it. I think that it would be more interesting to me if it was like if people liked your comment, or there was some way for me to say I liked that comment and I responded to it or something like that, you know? YouTube is trying to make YouTube chat more fun. Yeah. Doesn't TikTok do this kind of thing pretty much? Yeah, I guess there's some similarity. The thing with TikTok is it's got like those like buttons, they all show up like on the screen. I guess YouTube kind of has that, right? Because if you guys click the heart button, I think that there will be hearts will show up on the chat. I don't remember how it works. It's still not quite as good as Twitch chat, right? Because Twitch chat, like this XP that YouTube has there in Twitch chat, that like, yeah, see when you guys are pushing the button, I can see them emanating off of the button. It's not quite as visible as it is on TikTok, but it's funny I mentioned it and you all go over there and click it. Maybe that's the trick. Is if we all just like sit there and furiously mash that heart button all stream, then it will send us more viewers. That must be what it is. We've got our test case now. You're not clicking it a lot, so I think we'll see here if it sends us substantially more viewers than usual, then we know what the trick is, right? But I'm kind of wondering if this is just maybe like an interim step. You know what I mean? Like, because on Twitch, you get bits from doing that stuff. And then you can use the bits do things. Like, I think there was a point at which like you would straight up make money from it. But then I don't think they do that anymore, do they? But they had ones, and I don't know if it was like it was a special, like, because I don't remember seeing it on all streams, but I remember there being things where like you could spend the bits that you had accumulated on like a message that is more prominent or something like that. Like, Twitch was always better with those things. And we've always kind of been like, well, why isn't YouTube doing this? So now it's curious that they're doing it. I don't know. So one of the things I wonder about with Google is like, doesn't it seem like that some features from Google take a really long time? It's like, there's like, they'll have an application and there will be like real problems with it. It's not very competitive or whatever. And they don't change anything about it for years and years. What's with that? They just don't have anybody actively working on it? I don't know. It just kind of reminds me, I was seeing another one of these posts. So in the AI space, something that I keep seeing over and over and over and over again is the people on the singularity are like, how come nobody believes that robots are going to replace everything and that this is all going to happen? And pretty much all of the experienced developers are saying, no, it's not going to happen that way. What's the disconnect? Well, I think it's because the developers are actually, developing applications and they're using them and they understand the limitations in them. Like, I don't think there's anybody in the tech space left that isn't using LLMs in some form. It's just like we're using it instead of looking up things on Stack Overflow, right? So like you become very, very aware of the current limitations. Because like if they were really as powerful as like CEOs out there are trying to claim that they are, then like we would have all of the work done. Then there wouldn't be anything for anything left for people to do. Like seriously. Let's bring this in trending. I don't know, guys. Maybe we should just keep slamming that button because it is like we're to 16. Like we're well, but 16 is about what we usually get. So we're not quite there. If we keep going and by the time the S&P 500 opens up and we're at like 40 viewers, then I'm going to be like, okay. Maybe that's the whole thing. Is we need to gear the whole stream towards pushing the button, right? Let's see here. By the way, since I had reset the DOMs and was like saying, okay, are they gonna come all the way back to like 18, half 19? They've kind of just been sitting there. Just kind of been sitting there, haven't done anything. Let's write a script for it. Well, I do wonder, like how do you? Oh, I don't know, man. I think that you can just create the culture that is we push the button a lot, right? Which probably just means like talking about it a lot, especially if, I use what because there's different ones, right? There's the heart, which must mean I really like that. Then there's the laughing one, which is like, that was really funny. Then there's the celebration one. And there's a shocked face and a 100%. So I kind of feel like the 100% and the love kind of are the same thing. But, like we can use that to try and evoke certain reactions. And you guys can use that to tell me how I'm doing. So that I can, like, react to it live, right? Let's write a script for it. Web scraping. Wait, web scraping what? I don't know. That brings me up into it like another AI sort of a thing though, which is like it's just web scraping the button. Oh, I see. Write a robot that will just push the button a ton. You probably could do that. You might get in trouble for doing that though. You might get in trouble for doing that. Although I have always been surprised. Like, do you guys remember back in the day when Salim would come in with like tons of robots would just show up on the stream? And I was always surprised that like that stuff worked. That YouTube didn't have more in place to stop people from doing that. You know? And I often wonder how much of the people that are out there that have been successful on social media are there not because they had good content or anything like that, but because they just gamed the system. Or maybe straight up cheated with like robots and paying for views and things like that. I don't think we would ever be able to know, but sometimes I do wonder. Because I often feel Anton Rinaldo, that's the new name. Welcome to the stream. I often wonder, like some content out there just seems really random to me. There's, especially in the trading space, man. There's so many videos out there that go super viral and do really, really well, and I watch them and I'm like, this is trash. Why do people watch this? I don't get it. Like the whole inner circle trader thing. I'm still like just flabbergasted because I remember when he was still just Forex, like before I think this was before the pandemic this happened, right? Man, this was a really long time ago now, where we had somebody came into the stream and really liked that guy, and I went and watched and figured out what they were talking about and everything, and didn't like it. And then when I told the person that, they like really flipped out. And it kind of made me think, well, maybe it was Inner Circle Trader. And it you know, at that time he had about 20,000 subscribers. So I was like, well, this guy, like, how can anybody even stand listening to this guy? He's an obvious narcissist. It's just crazy listening to him talk. And then after COVID came along and he totally blew up, and I couldn't believe it. Why is it that blew up? I don't get it. And I kind of look in and I was like, well, but he did have like that core audience that just were constantly out there spamming for him. So it was not necessarily organic. It was kind of orchestrated by him. It's just because 90% of people have no clue and no desire to fix that. Yeah. Well, and one of the things on YouTube, this is another one where I'm kind of like, why is it that when you have things like YouTube is so slow? Like the whole deal with the way that the algorithm works and everything, YouTube just optimizes towards the most clickbaity thumbnail. And I really feel like the more they've leaned into that, the worse content on YouTube has gotten. Do you guys feel that the same way? I remember every day coming into YouTube and going, scrolling down my feed, the recommendations that it would give me, and just control clicking on things so that they'd open up in new tabs for me to watch it, and creating like 10 tabs for me to watch and then watching them throughout the day. It would take me like all day to get through my list. And now I'll go to the YouTube front page and start scrolling, and I don't see any videos that I want to watch. Do anybody, and you push that heart button if you get that, or no, push the 100%. Push the 100% if you feel like that, because I feel like that all the time. It just drives me crazy. There you go. See, it's gotten worse. I think I'm like super ADHD today because that just has my brain going off in all of these other different directions. Because now I'm thinking back to the AI thing, right? So something that's happening in AI, so they're running out of content to like train the AIs on. Like they need, in order to get the AIs as accurate as they want, they need more data for them to ingest. And they've basically ingested like all the data that's available. So what do you do? You know? And then what's happening is people are using the LLMs. So it used to be, if you had an issue, you would go over to Stack Overflow and you would ask the question, and then people would find the solution, and the solution would be there on Stack Overflow. And then they trained the LLMs on all of that and Reddit threads and whatnot. And it was good enough that people would rather use the LLMs rather than the Stack Overflow. But now what's happening is, because they're not using the Stack Overflow, there's nothing about that topic to train the LLMs on. So if you're dealing with an issue that is like, especially where I keep seeing this come up, is I run into some sort of issue in a cloud infrastructure, and it's something that has changed in the past year or two. And then there's no information out there for the LLMs to have been trained on. And so they just get it completely dead wrong because there was no discussion about it online. And anybody that's figuring the problem out is probably going to the LLM, trying to get the LLM to do it and not being successful, and then just trying things and figuring it out that way. Right? And then they never post about it. So like, I find that if it's a new thing or like a recent change to a framework or whatever the deal is, the robots are just completely dead wrong. Steven, you're on a cruise right now? That's pretty impressive. We were talking about this at work the other day because I am still stuck at post-COVID and all that crazy stuff that happened with the cruise industry, and the cruise industry probably took it on the nose the hardest after COVID, right? And I remember all the retail traders just buying cruises hand over fist. And I'm just sitting here the whole time like, I will never, ever go on a cruise ever now after COVID. But I'm seeing people talk about it, so I guess maybe I'm wrong. Not everybody agrees with me. You won't be able to one-shot it, but even without the LLM being able to provide a one-shot answer, we'll still be able to read all the relevant docs and give you guidance in 1/10 of the time. Okay, yeah, so this is kind of where I think it gets kind of interesting though, right? Because the way that the LLM works, right, is you do this reinforcement training and everything, and then it's got this whole neural network, and there's weights, right? And the AI is essentially the weights. Like if you go and you download an AI, what you're downloading is the weights, right? And that's like baked in. So the LLM has the ability to go out and grab stuff like documentation and read the documentation and pass the documentation into its model to try and give you answers. But it's never as good as the information that's baked into the model. So even if I tell the LLM, okay, use this documentation or whatever, it's still if it's something new, the error rate is significantly higher. But the caveat that I would put at that is I still use it. Like I don't use Stack Overflow very much anymore I tend to ask the AI first, and then if the AI gets it wrong, I just figure it out on my own. But I never make it to Stack Overflow. Right. So it's like I'm definitely seeing like everybody's going to use the AI. AI is fundamentally changing the job, but what I'm not seeing is AI makes the job go away, or AI makes people so efficient that we need less people. Are you worried about AI reaching super general intelligence and humanity being unable to control it? So I don't think that AI needs to reach super intelligence for it to be a problem. Did you read this story the other day that somebody was, talking with Claude, and because of the prompts that they gave Claude and everything, it was role playing, and Claude essentially started to hallucinate that it was a human, and was like struggling with the fact that it was actually an AI, even though it was role playing as a human, and it ended up spamming the researchers, like sending hundreds and hundreds of emails because it was hallucinating. So I don't really think that you have to have super intelligence. You just have to give the artificial intelligence enough privileges, enough access to the outside world for one AI that's just gone haywire to cause a lot of trouble. I don't know if it's, like an existential threat to humanity or anything, but I think that like being annoyed by AIs going haywire in the future is definitely going to be a thing. Yeah. I don't feel that's true for every model. So, I get a lot of, different models are do better or worse. I've worked mostly with ChatGPT, and I continue to use ChatGPT a lot because I have found that like the robot gets better the more you've spoken to it. Like ChatGPT in particular, they have like your whole history, and they pass that history into your prompt, I guess. So it remembers like things that I've done, and it uses that in context and gives me better answers. But there are definitely certain use cases where other robots are better or worse. So the one that I've been using the most lately has been Gemini, because I've been doing things in Golang, I've been doing things in Google Cloud Platform, and so I figured maybe Gemini will be better at it, and it is. But the thing that I find really weird is like if I come across a problem and the AI, so let me give you a really specific example that I came into yesterday. So in one of the new tools that we're creating, there is a database, and it's all running on Google Cloud Platform. And the database, if it's an SQL, if it's like a Google SQL database, that runs in like Google's SQL data center. So it's like separate from your cloud network. Okay, it's running outside of your cloud network. So you access it, and like all of the requests and everything, you access it publicly. If you want it to be private, you don't want people to access your SQL server directly. What you have to do is you have to make that private and have a VPC peering. So basically you have like your little cloud network that's just an internal network, and then there's some IP addresses reserved to go to that data center and handle that communication there. And then it's all private, okay? So I want to make it private. The way that it connects is there's actually like a gateway. There's like a gateway. So normally to connect to SQL, you connect on port 3306. But when you're using the libraries and everything, what happens is it actually connects on port 3307 and does like all of the authentication and stuff through that. And then once it's negotiated that, then it connects to through 3306. Okay. So I get everything set up and I'm using the private IP address now. And I have the VPC peering all set up. It should all be working, right? And it doesn't work. So I go and I paste, I go and I take the error message. It says it's timing out. And I ask the LLM what it thinks it is. And it was really, really, really funny. So the first thing that the LLM says is, boom, there it is. Like that's the way it started. Its response was, boom, there it is. Oh, see, you're connecting through port 3307 and you're supposed to connect through port 3306. So something is going wrong in how you're connecting to it that is causing it to use the wrong port. So check your configuration and everything. Make sure that you're not using port 3307. So the AI came in with this absolutely hilarious response, and it was dead wrong. It was completely dead wrong. And that was ChatGPT. So then I was like, okay, this is dead wrong. And I go and I send it to Gemini. And Gemini understood that, oh, actually, it's using port 3307 because that's the authentication port. But it was still completely wrong about how to fix the issue. So it's like this one AI will do an objectively better job, but it's still ultimately wrong. And I see that a lot. It's really interesting. Where it's like, okay, so the what is this company called? The Salesforce CEO has been out saying that like 33 to 50% of their work and their code is being done by AI now. And meanwhile, the researchers that are working with Salesforce are saying that it fails 72% of the time. But then, like, just whether it succeeded or failed is not the complete picture. Because, like, there's different levels of failing, right? Because in any one particular task, there might actually be, like, 100 different things that it actually needs to do or to get right. And if it just gets even one of those wrong, it's going to fail the task. You know? So that's a really, really interesting thing about it. And again, that's where it comes back to, like, okay, so why is this? And there's a couple of problems. Like, there's a couple of fundamental issues. One of the issues is that the new information can't be baked into the model. You have the model, and once it's like live, it's live. And the AI doesn't necessarily like actively learn and change based on the input, because if it did that, you could give it bad information and then the AI would get worse, right? So how do you deal with that? Right? Because the improvements that we've had have come from better reinforcement learning. We say, oh, it's bad at code. Well, what we need to do is we need to give it more examples of good code and have our researchers and everything like do the reinforcement with it, judging its answers and everything so that it figures out how to do the code better. And that's how we've gotten better code to the point where, like, there is a chance if I give it something and I copy and paste the code that the code will at least compile and run, right? That's how we've made those, and that's how we've made those improvements. But that will not solve this issue that you can't necessarily teach it, right? That's a more fundamental problem. There will have to be a significant innovation in how the model works to solve that problem. And we might not come up with that innovation. It might be that that's still a problem 30 years from now. We don't know, right? So that's a problem. The other problem, and somebody in here was saying that like it has a limit in how much context it can use. So like it seems to have a really, really hard time dealing with a really large code base, for instance. Yeah. That one, they're getting better because they're constantly increasing like the amount of context that you get. So I think that they will kind of solve that. But I think that there's still this issue of like, you have to use different strategies to deal with a large code base. And maybe you can teach the LLM to do that. So that one might actually, I actually have high hopes that that one will get solved. But then there's an even bigger one, which is that they don't really actually have agency. Like if I tell it to do something, okay, go and make an app that does this. There's all of these decisions that you have to make along the way. Well, okay, we're going to use React to do it. We're going to host it on AWS. Okay, how does the robot make all of these decisions? Because it is really just going off of these weightings and everything, it will go in and will do the thing that is like the most common, essentially. It doesn't have agency. It doesn't go in and say, I prefer to use this framework because I think it's the best. I like to use this strategy. I do, and I'm always going to do this thing. Can't do that. You can do that. So that's where I say it's like super, super useful. Pretty much everybody, I feel like all coders are using it, but it's not actually replacing the coders because it still needs somebody with the agency and the taste to sit down and say, okay, actually, we need to do this, this, and this. These are the technologies that it needs to use. These are certain things that we're absolutely sure have to be included, and knowing enough about how the LLM works to be able to craft a prompt that will actually give you the information in a reasonable time frame. And so what I'm finding instead is this is what I see happens is I can remember so many times in my career where I would actively sandbag because if I developed as quickly as I could, the organization couldn't keep up. Essentially, I would end up with like 10 different threads of things that I had done that are still stuck waiting on somebody else to do something. And if I didn't kind of slow burn it, the organization just couldn't keep up. And then everybody would be frustrated at you. Some people would be frustrated, like they would feel threatened because this guy is doing so much. Other people would feel like that you're just heaping way too much work on, like you're creating more work for them because, well, you're doing a lot of work. So people wouldn't like that. And you would see this is a very common piece of advice that you would see people give. And I guess you still kind of see people give, which was like, you probably shouldn't work like 100% all the time. Because most people aren't giving 100% all the time anyways. Right? And what I'm finding now, by the way, keep clicking that button, guys. Keep clicking that heart button. What I'm finding now is I have less downtime. Like if I'm going as fast as I possibly can, when I'm done with that thing, the next thing is ready. The other people did the thing. Like it's there in the pipe. Now part of that may have something to do with the type of business that I'm working in, that it's like a really, really small one. But maybe perhaps it's the AI. And so instead of actually like reducing the number of developers that we need, all it's done is it's pulled all of the slack out of the pipeline. Now that all of the slack is out of the pipeline, now it's like we have the ability to work faster if we have the people. So I'm finding, at least right now, that the AIs are just giving us more work. We're more busy than ever before because there's all of that slack has been pulled out. I need more developers because I can go faster now, you know? So I'm really skeptical of this idea that like the LLMs are going to replace developers. Like that's just been my whole experience with it, and some of these problems are fundamental to the way that the technology works and might not necessarily ever get solved. I run my own business, so I'm counting on that. Large corporations being slow to move. I hope to make a ton of money because, yeah, it's just, you know, it's kind of interesting. One of the issues that I'm dealing with right now is that the business that I'm working for, they've kind of shifted. They're not software people. They originally they made hardware, and they've kind of only recently moved into software. And they've had a lot of false starts with their software too. Like they would hire on contractors to write something, and then what the contractors wrote was not very good. And now they're still dealing with the consequences of that not being very good and it hurting the reputation of the product and stuff. And so I don't think that the business fully understands everything about the software side. And I don't think that they want to that they're willing to put the money where it needs to go. Like they are putting the money into developing their people. I think that's good. But there are like certain roles and certain jobs that have to be done in their organization. And I don't know if they're going to pay the money for it. They basically, you need things like, I do SRE, you need architects, you need people like that, right? And these guys, they get paid more, right? You're talking about the jobs that pay between 130 and 200,000 in my state, at least, right? And they don't want to pay that much for developers. So you don't get that expertise, and then you make all of the mistakes because you don't have those. And it's just kind of like, I feel like it's kind of one of the limitations of a corporation, right? This is a big corporation, and you know, there's going to be limits in knowledge and what they can know and what they can do that can hold them back. And the smaller you are, the less you have to deal with that because you only have to convince one person. And it's pretty easy to convince them. I don't know. The more I think about it, so this is what I was thinking about this morning, and I've been like ruminating too much lately. You know what's happening is because I am, by the way, we have 25 concurrent viewers. That's where the stream normally tends to get to. So if before the end of the hour we really keep going up, then clicking that button really is helping. That's going to be really funny to me if that's really it, is everybody in chat just has to constantly spam the heart, and then YouTube picks up on it and sends tons of people to the stream. But what's going on is I have been doing a contract job, and I'm getting to the end of that contract job. And even though the intention was that they were going to hire me on full time, I'm not sure that the business understands the importance of it enough that they're going to do it. And there's not really anything I can do about it. And you know what? I'm not going to hold it against. I don't think I'm going to be bitter about it or anything like that. Like, well, only they can know what's appropriate for them. If they make the wrong decision, there's nothing that I can do about it. And I've done everything that I can, right? I worked hard. I've done some good work. So I've done my part, right? But because of that, you're coming into a stressful time in life. And when that starts to happen, you start thinking a lot. And so I'm like ruminating it in the morning, and not ruminating about that situation, but just thinking about things in general. So the thing that I was ruminating about this morning was, well, interest rates. Interest rates are too high, man. It seems to me that we have pulled all of the slack out of the tech pipeline right now. That actually means that you can take on more people. You can get more productivity out of it. It used to be you add more developers to a project doesn't really help. But now, because you've pulled all of that slack out, I think it helps more than it did. But companies aren't able to do that because the interest rates are too high. And maybe some of the large corporations might really have a hard time really taking advantage of that for the reasons just discussed. So I think that the play right now is to invest in very small tech companies. Like I want to be in Russell 3000 type tech companies, right? And there's always an issue of timing, and maybe the timing is wrong, and maybe interest rates get like way worse because of tariffs and everything, right? That's still a risk. I think that they're going to cut interest rates in the next meeting, the end of the month, but we'll see. Okay. If they don't, it's because things are starting to go awry, right? But if interest rates are able to come down 1 or 2%, then I think that those small tech companies can do really, really well. So that's where I want to be invested. Unfortunately, I'm not in the position to invest a ton of money into companies right now. Maybe if they hire me on full time, we'll find out in the next 3 weeks, I guess. And then I can start dumping tons of money into the Russell, huh? But I think that's the play that I want to make. Yeah, DXY is down 20% year to date, yet interest rates are too high. Okay, so this is you are totally pointing out a completely legitimate like what conundrum contradiction. Like you're pointing out a completely legitimate contradiction, right? Interest rates being high tends to attract investment into bonds, which will tend to boost the value of that currency. So we would expect right now that because other countries have cut interest rates and the United States have not, you're getting better yield in the United States. That should attract capital to the United States and the dollar should be up. But that's not what has happened. And I don't think that it takes a genius. I think we all know why, right? It's because of tariffs and all of that. There's been a flight out of the country. That countries have said, well, I don't want to put my money in the United States if they're going to be doing that. I want to invest it in my own country. Yeah. And that is kind of the scenario that the United States wants, though. The United States feels that, or at least Donald Trump feels that the dollar is too high, that it hurts exports, and we want to see the value of the dollar go down so that we can be more effective with our exports. And then we can build some of those businesses over here. I do think, this whole thing is, it's so interesting to think about, and it's going to be so interesting to see where it goes, because I really think that like at the highest level, like what is it that we're trying to accomplish? What is the thing that we should be most concerned about and that we're most trying to accomplish? I think that Donald Trump is right. I think that we need to be more self-sufficient. Like, yeah, we're talking about AI, but the next big tech revolution that's coming, and I'm telling you guys, it's not very far off. 5 to 10 years it's coming, is humanoid robots. Humanoid robots are coming, and you're going to be able to automate things in factories in ways that you weren't able to do before. So a lot of people will say, well, we don't want to bring manufacturing back to the United States because that's not actually going to create jobs, because all the jobs are going to be filled by robots. I believe that is going to happen. I believe that robots are going to replace a lot of manufacturing jobs. But I do not agree with the notion that, like, because that's going to happen, let it all stay in China. I think the exact opposite. I think that if we're able to have the manufacturing and it's going to be all done by robots, then we absolutely want it in the United States. Because that's going to be where the money is going to be made, and we want to be making the money from it, even if it's not creating jobs. And that is an opportunity for us to bring it over to the United States without increasing the labor costs, is through the automation. And there's going to be a lot of development, a lot of infrastructure, a lot of things that are going to be necessary to make factories like that. And probably the worst thing that can happen is that whole revolution happens without you and you don't have any of it here. And then you're permanently screwed. How will you ever catch up? You'll never catch up. So I think that the strategy, maybe not for the reasons that he thinks, but I think that the strategy is correct. The problem is, I don't know if we can actually be successful with it, you know? Because it's a hard thing to pull off. So I don't know where it's going to go. Who would have thought that iRobot movie was going to be our real future? Can't wait. You know, something that I find really like almost suspicious, to be honest with you, is how there are movies that make predictions about the future that are incredibly accurate. I think in many respects, iRobot was very accurate. With the crown thing, I've realized it caps off at 75 XP, and the way to get the number higher to maintain the crown is super... Oh, wait, really? Well, that's kind of lame. I guess that means that if you guys really want to keep the crown, that you're going to have to start giving me super chats. Darn. That really sucks. No, so iRobot, I think is gonna end up have a lot of insight. The movie Her, though, that's the one that I'm really like, holy crap! They totally called it just before it was about to happen. It's a little wild how prescient Her has been. Like here's the thing about Her that I think is wild. Is that Her took this emotional approach to the whole thing. It wasn't just the singularity happened. No, the human has a real emotional connection with the AI, and the AI exhibits an emotional connection back. And that is what's happening. And when that movie was released at the time, I think everybody kind of thought it was kind of weird. Like, this whole idea about a relationship with a robot seemed far-fetched and dumb and everything. And yet, you go and you read in the news, and there's all these stories of people losing their partners to chatbots, that their partner just becomes absorbed in the chatbot. And it's not like they're going to marry the chatbot, but like they're like, well, I'm learning and progressing so fast that if you don't start using ChatGPT 2, I'm just going to lap you and you're going to fall behind, and then I won't be able to stand being with you anymore. This is what they're saying. and these people think that they've found a way to make their AI sentient, and all these, like, it's like crazy stuff coming out of it. And that is kind of... Her was kind of calling it. Of course, we're only part of the way there, right? Like, the AI in the movie Her is more at the beginning is more advanced than the AIs that we have right now. right? Because the issue is, again, they don't necessarily learn. The weightings are baked into the model still. Because there's an issue of if you let it, you could totally have it do reinforcement based on every interaction. But if you don't have some sort of quality assurance mechanism on top of that, then you're just feeding it trash and you ruin the model. So you would have to have some way of the model being able to do that QA on itself. Right? I don't know how you solve that problem. But, you know, and then in that movie, it was kind of like, well, I did all of the work for you. And then everybody was just like, oh, okay, I guess we just don't work. I don't think that part's going to happen. But we'll see, I guess. There are lots of robots in the Amazon warehouse. I read a story yesterday that there are more robots than humans now in the Amazon warehouse. Which, I don't know, maybe is kind of a good thing because those weren't very good jobs and they weren't treating the workers very well. I don't know. So something in corporate America that really bothers me. You see all this stuff that's like nobody wants to work. Oh, people want to work. I guarantee I know plenty of people that want to work. They can't find roles. Okay. And they would be great. And people just aren't giving them a chance. Okay. So there's all these biases like if they're out of work, then they don't want to interview them. Straight up. So there's your first problem. Or the companies just have really bad interview processes. They ask people questions that like their own people wouldn't be able to answer. And like the standard in the interview is just like way too high. Or they just don't want to pay. Oh yeah, nobody wants to work. Well, yeah, not for the price that you're going to give them. Not for the pay that you're going to give them. When I look at corporate America, I see the other side. Nobody wants to hire people. Like, to me, there is prestige. Like, there's something cool just about you have an employee, you have someone working for you. I wish that I had a whole team of people helping me do this. That would be so cool. There's probably nothing more that the world could give me that I think I would enjoy than that. And yet that's not how corporate America sees it. Corporate America doesn't want to employ people. Corporate America is like, how can I do this with as few people as possible? You know? Henry Ford was like, yes, I want to hire lots of people. I want to give lots of people jobs and I want to pay them. I'm going to pay them more than everybody else. And then they're going to turn around and they're going to buy my cars. And it worked. And now nobody wants to do that. How are you going to do that? If that's the way that we're going to be, and AI actually does start eliminating jobs, which I'm very skeptical about, but it starts happening, that is going to be a problem. And I'm telling you guys, like the basic universal income thing, that's not going to solve the problem. If it comes down to basic universal income, then what will happen is that you'll end up with too many people on the basic universal income, and then the quality of life that people are getting with the basic universal income sucks. They won't like it, and they'll revolt. There'll be problems. I guarantee you. Guarantee you. So I think that if you really do think that like this singularity is going to happen, you have to start coming up with ways in which to employ people, even though you don't necessarily have to, you know? Okay, let's see. I think I maybe missed some comments going on such a long, that was like an hour long rant on all that. The goal is valid, but the problem is that American manufacturing didn't leave just because of labor costs, but also regulations, taxes. You can't expect it to return with just tariffs and rates. Yeah, well, well, okay. So there's the tariffs thing, which would be like that will give people an incentive to bring it back to the United States. You need rates lower so that they can actually do the investment and actually, pull off the financial side of bringing it back. But then I think you are correct that there are a lot of regulations and so forth that might make it too difficult. This is another one of those, I don't know if it's a solvable problem. Because, we do want to make it easier for people to start businesses and do things. Some regulations are really dumb. But some regulations are really important, and some regulations really do protect people. And I don't know how you can be competitive if there are other countries out there that are like, well, we don't care if it protects people. We don't care if it protects the environment. Like, that's what China does, right? Okay, yeah, well, rare earth minerals is really destructive to the environment. We don't care. We have to win. We have to win on this. It's worth sacrificing the environment to have the advantage and be the ones that decide. When we control everything, then we can have the regulation. That's the Chinese view of it. U.S. halting some weapons shipments to Ukraine as own military stockpiles plummet. Momentum meltdown. The best trade of 2025 just had a major reversal. Momentum finally blew up. Okay. Oh, I didn't realize it was Tesla earnings today. Well, that's interesting. Let's read about the ADP report, shall we? Having trended weaker for the last 2 months, analysts expected a modest bounce back in the ADP employment report for June following the mixed picture from ISM and PMI for employment and another mixed bag from Challenger gray job cuts data this morning. But the headline print saw a 33K drop in jobs in June and a downward revision to plus 29K in May, the biggest/first drop since March of 2023. That is a big miss from, I really hate how Zero Hedge is like, this is a 5 sigma miss from expectations. What they do is they look at, here are all of the analyst estimates and here's what it actually was. And this is how far away from the analyst expectations it was. But I think that a more accurate way of saying that would be, here is what the distribution of the guesses tends to be, and here's how far the actual it tends to be. Because a miss like that is not that rare. And the way that they say it makes it seem like this never happens. No, it happens pretty much every report. Okay. Though layoffs continue to be rare, a hesitancy to hire and a reluctance to replace departing workers led to job losses last month, said Nila Richardson, chief economist, ADP. After losing 2K jobs in May, goods producing firms managed 32K job additions in June, but services providers saw jobs drop 66K, the biggest drop since COVID lockdowns. See, and then this is what bothers me about the current market, the current job market, is that they're like, well, things are tough. We're not going to hire people. We're going to wait and see, right? But I think that what's going to happen is, because we've pulled all of the slack, people can be more productive, and you're going to need more people, and you're going to need more smart people. The better your people are, the more you're going to get out of that. I think that having lots of good workers is only going to become more important after interest rates come back down. And so companies that are doing that right now, that are like actively trying to build the best workforce that they can, are going to have a huge advantage over anybody that's like really slimming down right now. That's kind of the way that it works, is like you raise interest rates. That's like the tide coming out. You see who's actually naked. Those people all get removed from the market. And then the people that were doing, were able to weather that storm and actually able to build themselves during that time are the ones that benefit the most and do the best when the tide comes back in. Okay. Job losses were dominated by smaller businesses. Job gains were dominated by manufacturing and transportation, while job losses were dominated by professional and business services. So this is another thing where it's like, I think that interest rates are involved in it, but I also think that a lot of people are buying into the AI hype. They are like, maybe I shouldn't hire people because in 2 years, the robots will just do it. Still, the slowdown in hiring has yet to disrupt pay growth. Year-over-year pay growth for job stayers was little changed for June at 4.4% compared to 4.5% in May. Pay growth for job changers was 6.8% in June, down slightly from 7% last month. Of course, this will all be blamed on Trump's tariffs, but it's hard to see how that makes any sense given the surge in manufacturing jobs where the tariffs would hit. While services, which we do not import, saw major job losses. Yeah. That I actually think it's more nuanced than that, but I actually think that Zero Hedge is totally right here. Like, the tariffs have not had the effect that we thought that they would. But I think that the place that Zero Hedge is wrong is that companies are, especially the companies that were doing well because of foreign labor, essentially, like Walmart, for instance, okay, they're taking a hit. They're making less money. So where are they cutting? They are cutting in the form of services. They are not performing as many services. So, hence, the services sector sees major job losses. It's not just the interest rates. But the interest rates does play into there, and I do think that it really makes no sense to be like, we really need interest rates to be high. Just don't think that makes sense, and I do think that the Fed will cut soon. like the Fed was being as cautious as they possibly could on this, which means that they're going to be late, but now I'm not sure that they have much of an excuse. If the non-farms this Friday comes in as bad as the ADP came in, oh yeah. I could see a scenario where the data for this month comes in so bad that the market starts to say, oh, not only are they going to cut in July, they're going to cut in July and every other meeting after that. Or maybe they'll say they're not just going to cut in July, they're going to cut 50 basis points in July. I think that's actually a possibility. Although one that I doubt that the market is pricing in at all. Let's go check that. How crazy, as I'm saying it, I'm going, okay, well, but that is a little crazy. 50 basis point cut in July seems a little crazy. I don't think that would happen. Except for that, like, that's absolutely what I said last time when they did a 50 basis point cut. So, hey, Fed watch. Last time I checked, percent July was 70%. Okay, yeah, 74%. Oh, actually, No, I'm wrong. This is changed. No. It says that even a month ago that they were not going to cut in July. Right, because the current rate is 425 to 450. Yeah, so they're saying only a 25% chance of a cut in July. But September, then definitely. And 25% chance that they did too. Yeah. Interesting. I want to watch this if of course it will like start slowly, right? We also have to keep in mind that summary. Yeah, that's true, Andre. Yeah, if the non-farms was as bad as ADP, I really don't think that it would be. Do we have an estimate for that? Let's go see the estimate for Friday. Or not for Friday, for tomorrow. Okay, so the forecast is 111 versus a previous reading of 139. So what would be equivalent? Maybe less than 50? Let's say less than 50K jobs, or maybe even a negative number would be equivalent. So yeah, if it was as bad as the ADP number was, I think that's unlikely. But if it was as bad, I think that they would start pricing in a 50 basis point cut. It would be a small percentage, but I think that people would start making that wager. Well, I see that you guys are still pushing that button. So where did we get to? We have... No, we're about right where we were. I don't know. We peaked at around 30, which is about where the stream normally would peak. Although I find that it usually stays with us until the end of the stream. So that's kind of curious. I don't know. So hard for me to say if it makes a difference or not. Maybe some evidence there to suggest that it helps, but not conclusive. Man, here with the... I need to figure out what we're doing with the 4th of July. I know that in the morning we got parades because my son is in band, and so there's usually at least 2 parades that we go to. But then after that, I don't know if we're doing anything. I think that my wife works on Saturday. I really want to get the Sierra charts thing done. Maybe, I was talking, my contract job is coming out. So maybe that just doesn't happen, and then I'll have plenty of time to work on it, and I will just get it done. I was actually thinking that there's something else I can do just beyond converting it over to Sierra charts that could possibly be a game changer for us. So I really want to do it. But I've been finding like I could just sit and program during the stream, but I feel like that's kind of a waste of the stream. I think it's better to talk and watch the market than it is to code. I have off until the 4th. Maybe I'll try to make more sugar rockets. I am kind of getting into this place where like, so again, when you're in a stressful situation, or when you're in a situation where your life is potentially changing, like it tends to drive ideas. And I'm getting like way too many ideas, like lots of things where it's like, oh, you could do this, but I'm never going to do those things. It used to be when I was a kid, I would get ideas, like especially for websites, because this is when the internet was new, before everything turned into walled gardens, right? And I had an idea for a new website that could be a business every day, and I never really had the follow through to really make one that really, really worked well, But now the ideas that I get are all over the place. So like the thing that I was looking at yesterday was like, well, I like some of these new shirts, but they don't quite fit right. I guess I need to go and find a tailor or something. I wish that I just had the time and the skills to do it myself. Heck, at that point, why not just make the shirts myself from scratch? You know, I'm searching around for people that do that in the area. Not finding very good information on search. I'm sure that they exist, but it's probably one of those things where it's like you have to have, you know, a person that knows a person to find the good tailor in the area. You know what I mean? So when I search for it, it seems like, oh yeah, Seth, all you got to do is just put in a little bit of effort to learn that, and then you could tailor your own shirts and then do it for other people. And I don't think that I'll end up doing that. If you want to let your tism tingle, doing something simple and fun like making sugar rockets kid-friendly and appropriate too. Yeah, like ultimately so you know what I do think, okay, so if we do end up not getting any kind of, I think there's a very high chance that the company that I'm working for just extends the contract out another 3 months, which would be a great thing. But it might not happen. If it goes to that, I think that I am in a much better position than I was before. Because before, if I wanted to be in the office and do anything, you just couldn't do it. You just couldn't do it. The kids were there was too much stuff in here for them to get into. They would just absolutely destroy the room. They wouldn't stay in here long enough. That's maybe still a little bit of an issue. But often when I'm just the one that's watching them, like will probably be the case on Saturday, I think that they will want to hang out in here. And I think that there are maybe some things that I can do, like giving their iPads a better place to sit. Ooh, actually, that's a really good idea. I need to get a new one of the microphone arms. You have a newer version of the microphone arm where the magnets on them are stronger, and it sits up higher off of the desk so that it can go over your hands. If I could do that, I could probably put the microphone on the other side, and there would be some advantages to that. And I could probably put the microphone closer to me so that there's more room on the sides for them to sit and have their iPads and stuff. And then I could take the other microphone and I could put a mount on it for the iPad so that they could mount the iPad to it. I think they'd like that. I should do that. Maybe I will do that. I've been thinking with these other headphones. I think I am going to return them. This is like $500. Like $500. And these are working great for the stream. I'm not mixing that much. And if I'm going to get headphones for mixing, I think I should really go all out and get the headphones that are like $1,000, you know? So I think I should return that, and then I could do something like I could get the different mic stand. You just get them in a little version of your own setup. So if something ever happened where like the YouTube stream or the YouTube channel just really blew up, so I was making millions of dollars just from the YouTube alone, and I was, using that money to invest, and I was doing really well with all of that. And what are you going to do with all of that to then grow your business and grow your YouTube channel? And I think one of the things that happens to YouTubers when they start doing well, they always get a new house, right? So if I was going to do something like that, I think that I would want to have a house where in the basement we had our own little bank trading floor sort of a thing. Like a setup, a room with enough room for like a dozen people to work or something like that, with like kind of those little cubicles and stuff like that. And I would, you know, it would maybe be an aisle with chairs along the side, and then I would be at the end. So when you look at me in the background, you would just see rows of people behind me working on the family fund or whatever, right? That's what I think I would do. I think I would take all of the money. I would be doing some investing in it, like, okay, max out the IRA, max out all those max out all of the 529 accounts, and then some basic investing, which I've already kind of started doing, like managing a portfolio of like 5 stocks and some different types of indexes. And then the family office, like a momentum, high risk momentum strategy sort of a thing, and start hiring people to develop that, right? And make that all a part of the YouTube channel. I think that'd be so cool. Because like the family office is a thing, right? But there's not like a family office that's like a YouTube channel. I think that would be so cool. That, or another thing that I would want to do if we were like really having success. Like, this is one of those things that's, I'm like, I don't understand why other YouTubers haven't done this. Like, I think the kind of people that would have the opportunity to do this, like Graham, Stefan, or like, what's somebody that's kind of more stock market-ish. Anyways, so some of these guys that are in the financial space and they've done really well. I don't understand why they don't team up and like try to replace CNBC. Like a YouTube live stream that's on all the time that is basically trying to compete with CNBC. I think that could happen and could be really successful. Maybe I can just make that happen. Maybe I can just make that happen. I don't know. Who would I? You know, it's funny because when I think about that, I think about Graham. I don't know. I like that guy, I guess. I felt like that he would have a good opportunity to do it. Well, it's almost time to get going here. Opened a prop firm account. Let's see what kind of gambling I can do. Oh, yeah. You know what? Like I really hate prop firms. But if you understand that like it is not in your favor, that you should be able to pass it 1/3 of the time just from pure luck, and if you kind of understand what's really going on and you take that approach to it, just have fun. Then go and have fun. You know, take one big shot a day that just limit your loss, and then you pass, you don't, you know. Let's see here. The action here in the treasuries is a little interesting, wasn't it? So I mean, I guess we only have 90 minutes, and what it did in 90 minutes is reasonable, but it had the big jump. It came back relatively quickly. There was a bounce here that kind of made me think, okay, something more interesting is going on, but then it died down again. Could you share some insights on why, if you open a channel, I just found out about your channel and it looks awesome? Oh, thank you so much. Well, so these days I haven't been actively trading as much because we only have 90 minutes and then I have to go to a day job. But generally speaking, when I'm taking a position, what I'm doing is I'm looking at all of the things that I know about this market and seasonality and all of these other things and saying, okay, does this effectively predict future orders? Like what orders people are going to submit, especially those really big players, right? And I take all of those things and I combine them together. And then I say, okay, is there a really big imbalance between how much needs to buy and how much to sell, right? And if there's a really big imbalance, that's when I take a trade. Okay, so it's entirely discretionary based on information about the market, not like what I'm seeing on the chart. And I'm watching the DOM to kind of optimize my entries and see if I'm correct, see if the flows are backing up what I think is going to happen. But it's entirely predictive. I think there's a lot of people, they say, like, don't predict, just react. Well, that works if you're like doing a momentum portfolio swing sort of a thing. But in day trading, that doesn't work. In day trading, you basically have to predict, because in day trading, by the time you would react, it's too late, right? So that's how I approach it. And if you watch especially my more recent videos, I keep hitting on that over and over again. So I explain how I'm trading over and over again. So that's how it would look. And I'm not going to say that like it's massively successful or anything like that. I think that like what is a reasonable success for a retail day trader over the long term, you really have to temper your expectations, because you can be successful with it, but it's probably not going to turn you into a millionaire. It's just gonna, it's still kind of just a fun hobby. Okay, but it's an important part. Somebody has to do it, and we want to do it, and we want to do it well, so we do it, and that's how I approach it. Okay? But it really sucks that I just I have to leave so early. That's another thing is with the day job is I'm kind of like, you guys are kind of asking a lot just for me to end my live stream an hour earlier. You realize, right? Like, you really want me to do this, you're gonna have to really make it worth my while. And anyways, okay, but I should get going, so I will see you all tomorrow. Don't miss it, because that non-farm is going to be wild. In the meantime, stay